Virtual identities exist everywhere, from social network profiles to video games and virtual reality. Studies show that we can identify so strongly with these virtual representations or avatars that we conform to their expected behaviors, including food choices, racial bias, creative thinking, and more. Despite the extensive literature attesting to avatars' influence on us, research has focused almost exclusively on visual aspects of the avatar rather than the audio aspects. In this paper, we study how voice similarity versus voice dissimilarity influences users in an educational programming game. Additionally, we varied voice modulation across all participants. This consisted of pitch shifting the voice upwards, downwards, or not at all. We pose the following hypotheses based on existing literature. First, higher voice similarity will lead to more positive avatar identification, need satisfaction, intrinsic motivation, and performance. Second, avatar identification will mediate more positive need satisfaction, intrinsic motivation, and performance. In other words, voice similarity will lead to a higher level of avatar identification, which will in turn increase these outcomes. And finally, consistent with gender stereotypes in STEM, voice modulation upwards and downwards will have a negative and positive effect, respectively, on avatar identification, need satisfaction, intrinsic motivation, and performance. We use Codebreakers, a Java programming game in which players solve increasingly difficult problems by throwing snippets of code. We developed an online platform that takes as input a single audio voice clip and can generate an arbitrary number of similar voice clips. Here's a sample clip of Codebreakers gameplay.
What am I doing here? Did my ship crash? How long have I been lying here for? I guess I should get up and look around. Looks like there's a healing spring up ahead.
To collect a sample of the participant's voice, the player was asked at the beginning of the game to speak to an animated robot that introduced the game to the participant. The voice was then sent to a server and processed while the player completed the rest of the game introduction. The manipulations are as follows: similar voice, dissimilar voice, modulation upwards, modulation downwards, and no modulation. For measures, 3 validated player experience questionnaires and gameplay metrics were used. For avatar identification, the player identification scale PIS was used, which measures 3 dimensions of avatar identification: similarity identification, embodied identification, and wishful identification. To measure need satisfaction, we used the player experience of need satisfaction scale, PEN scale, with the following measures: competence, autonomy, relatedness, presence and immersion, and intuitive controls. To measure intrinsic motivation, we used the Intrinsic Motivation Inventory IMI dimensions: interest and enjoyment, effort and importance, pressure and tension, and value and usefulness. We recorded metrics for game performance, including puzzles completed and number of hints accessed. Participants were allowed to play for any length of time, and they were allowed to quit at any time. We operationalized motivated behavior as the time spent playing the game. We had a total of 657 participants recruited through Amazon Mechanical Turk, and 29% of them were women. The manipulation check assessed the voice similarity manipulation and the perceived fit between the voice and the game avatar. The final results indicated that the voice similarity manipulation was successful at inducing higher perceived avatar voice similarity, and that voices in all conditions adequately fit the avatar. For hypothesis 1, compared to the participants in the voice similarity condition, the participants in the voice similarity condition experienced an increase in performance, time spent, similarity identification, competence, relatedness, and immersion. On the other hand, there was no significant difference in embodied and wishful identification, autonomy, controls, and intrinsic motivation. For hypothesis 2, we found that the voice similarity leads to higher similarity identification, and that higher similarity identification was subsequently related to higher performance, time spent, need satisfaction, interest and enjoyment, and value and usefulness. Therefore, we concluded that similarity identification significantly mediates the relationship between voice similarity and performance, time spent, need satisfaction, and intrinsic motivation. For hypothesis 3, neither the main effects of voice modulation nor the interaction effects between gender and voice modulation were significant. Therefore, voice modulation had a negligible impact on outcomes. We found that higher voice similarity directly increased game performance, time spent, similarity identification, competence, relatedness, and immersion. Mediation analysis also found that similarity identification mediates between voice similarity and performance, time spent, need satisfaction, and intrinsic motivation. Surprisingly, pitch shifting had no significant effect. The voice modulation may have been too subtle for observable effects. Game companies can create more engaging experiences through similar voice audio, leading to greater commercial success. Virtual environments more generally that contain voice characters could also benefit from voice similarity. Many real-world devices incorporate voice assistants such as Siri, Cortana, Google Assistant, and Alexa. Although the effect of voice similarity with these assistants has not been studied directly, the present findings suggest that increasing voice similarity would lead to more positive interactions with such assistants. Although still not common, some games allow for customization of avatar audio. While a self-similar voice is not possible in most circumstances currently, more complex avatar audio customization could be highly beneficial. This line of research on audio avatar identities is also relevant to the Proteus effect, the phenomenon that avatar users tend to conform behaviorally to the identity characteristics that they associate with their avatars. This phenomenon has been studied extensively with respect to avatar appearance, but not with respect to avatar voice characteristics. Avatar identification is a topic of extensive research. Despite widespread acknowledgement of how avatar identification benefits users, existing studies have focused on visual appearance of avatars. We presented one of the first studies to date on avatar self-similar audio. We found that higher voice similarity leads to a significant increase in performance, time spent, similarity identification, competence, relatedness, and immersion. Further, similarity identification acts as a significant mediator variable between voice similarity and performance, time spent, need satisfaction, and intrinsic motivation.